listening to this podcast right now. Do you want to hear a fucking podcast about anything and everything?
Yeah.
Like movies, music, television, and more?
Oh my God.
Well, you've come to the right place.
Yes.
Subscribe to Journey into Comics Network, and you get Podcastrophe, hosted by me,
Yes.
Dick. Why not throw a couple bucks to the Patreon? It's your choice. Yeah. This is a Podcastrophe.
That sounds so awesome.
The following
Following.
is a Journey into Comics.
Journey into
It's a
Comics
journey into
Is a
comics.
Journey into Comics.
Journey into comics.
Journey into Comics
Network.
Network
Production.
Production.
Hello, everyone. That was really bad. Welcome back to Adulting Ain't Easy. This is episode 7.
For real this time.
For real this time. Apparently, we thought it was episode 7 last week, and then, not last week, 2 weeks ago, and it wasn't the case. So, yes, we are back. We're back from another country.
Yes. We're
Continent.
back. Country, continent, the whole shebang.
The whole...
Hemisphere, all that jazz.
Yep. And there's a sleepy, non-familiar dog next to us.
Yeah. So
Yep.
we're babysitting.
You're babysitting. Babysitting my parents' dogs. Because right after we got back, my parents came up and are going to see my brother in California, and they left their sweet puppy behind.
Yeah.
My puppy, like a 4-year-old dog.
Mhm.
But very nice.
So anyway, you're Andrew.
I am Andrew. Did I not introduce myself?
No.
I am Andrew, and you are Liz.
Yes, I am.
And we are very content here. Liz is laying down. I'm sitting here. We are very content with our cheer wine. We're here to bring you a new show.
So, I don't know how to
What are we talking about?
So since we went to 2 different places in Africa, we decided that we'd do a 2-parter because there's so much stuff that we kind of did in both cities, and it would be way too long if we did it all in one.
Exactly.
So we just got back from South Africa, and we were in Johannesburg and Cape Town through a company called Go Touchdown, and they do a bunch of different tours. Their primary, I think, is in Africa, but they've got a ton of other tours. Like there's some Europe, and I don't know if there's Asia yet.
I think
But
they're talking about Asia. I think they're slowly expanding out from just the African continent.
yeah, because they started like maybe less than 5 years
Does
ago.
they have a Northern Africa one?
No.
No, I thought they did.
But anyway, we were in South Africa and
For 2 whole
for
weeks.
2 weeks. And so today we were going to talk more about the Johannesburg side of things because it was the way that our tour was structured. It was more of a safari on the first half near Johannesburg since there's more game reserves and national parks over there than down south. And then the second half of the trip was more of like city life and kind of more on the I don't know if I want to say cultural side, but
It was more of what you would think going to Africa.
in Cape Town.
No.
I don't know.
Oh no, in Johannesburg.
But I'm saying that Cape Town, they were all different experience. Cape Town, it's very like
Urban.
yes.
Very urban, very coastal.
Mhm.
It was kind of like almost like you were in. I was saying like parts of it could feel like you were in like San Francisco.
Mhm.
Very hilly. There was ocean there. There was a large boardwalk and waterfront life.
But let's not get too ahead of ourselves.
Right. We'll talk about that in 2 weeks when we'll talk
Yes.
fully about Cape Town.
Mhm.
Drop the volume here just a smidge. Go ahead and keep talking.
What was I going to say? So yeah, so our first 2 weeks, we ended up flying, or the first week, I guess, the first part of our 2-week trip we were in Johannesburg, and I don't know, everyone keeps asking us which was better, Johannesburg or Cape Town, and they were so different, and you'll see that when we talk about Cape Town as well. They're just completely different experiences, and it's hard to kind of pick which one was better, because they both had we didn't have a bad experience in either spot.
Right. There were two different to compare.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like comparing like Humala to Pilansburg,
Which we'll get into.
which we'll get into when we get further into this. But do you just want to talk about our flight, the first part of that? Just kind of go in order,
I guess we can go in order.
Or do you just want to jump around?
I think it's best to go in order. So we had a very long flight. We basically went from Chicago to Atlanta, and then Atlanta all the way to Johannesburg, which was a very, very long, tiring 20-hour flight.
Was it 20? That was 15.
Yeah, I don't know.
15. Well, it was 15 straight plus the 3 hours from Chicago to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And 15 hours when you can't sleep and you're trapped in... And we weren't on the aisle, so we were kind of stuck for a lot of the flight.
Mm-hmm.
And since we weren't used to traveling that long, at least I wasn't, I couldn't get comfortable. It was we were
very grouchy by the end. We
were
ready to be
we were gross from just sitting for that long. You just get like sweaty, and it's just, you feel gross. And you really want to just like stretch your legs and just like run around almost, because you just get very stir crazy.
Or lay down.
Of
course, those dang first class people there was like, it was almost divided into three, because there's first class, which they had a full like lay down section.
Like they have like almost like it's like a little pod, so like you can sit, there's like a spot, but you can also put your legs up. Yeah. I don't think you can fully recline, but I think you can at least put your legs up and kind of lean back. So you're kind of in like almost like those like beach chairs. It's kind of the closest thing it probably compares to.
I would say so, yeah. And then they had the Comfort Plus, which had they had a little more leg room, plus you could there was a sling where you could put your feet up.
Right,
and then we were in
and the chairs were bigger.
Yeah, and then we were in economy.
Which is very standard. There was, on the international flights, I did feel like there was more leg room than on a traditional flight. Yeah. A little bit. For me, because my leg room is the thing I hate most about flying, though, because my legs are long, so sometimes my knees are just like in my throat for a flight. And I would have been so cranky. I would have stayed just standing around until I had to sit down again, if that was the case.
Yeah. But, I mean, they did compensate for the big flight. Like, we were able, even though we were in the economy seats, we still were able to have alcohol for free. We got in-flight movie, and they had screens in the headrests, and so you could watch movies or TV shows.
Yeah, they had relatively new movies too. Yeah, movies that were just out to rent. Like I remember we watched Happy Death Day to You, which hasn't been out all that long.
They had what was it? The Star. What was it?
Stars Born.
No. Well, besides that one, it's the one with the girl with the big eyes. What the hell is that movie?
Oh, Alita.
Yes, they had
Alita,
that one.
Battle Angel.
Yes.
And they had they start a lot of the big movies that came out in theaters between end of last year and the beginning of this year.
Yeah, so it wasn't like you were bored, because then you also we had TV shows that we downloaded and that we watched and all that stuff.
But ended up watching, at least for the most part, our screens.
Mm-hmm. But it was easy, because then you get, when you're on a flight for that long, it's just really tiring to just have your hand up and holding your phone.
Or having it down and looking down the whole time, because that just gets you dizzy and you hurt your neck. So being able just to stare straight ahead
is nice.
Yes, definitely.
So that was I guess the only part that I really didn't like was getting there, because of how badly our layover was scheduled.
How long was our layover in Atlanta?
4 hours.
It was a while.
Yeah. But anyway, we don't have to talk to our flight for that long, because then once we got there, we got through all the customs and whatever. That wasn't really that super exciting. But then we got picked up by our lovely first tour guide, James. Gems. Yeah, at first Andrew thought his name was Gems. And he's like, yeah, his name, is it Gems? I'm like, it's James. He can't, his A's aren't as hard as ours.
Yeah, it's a very Britishy.
The A's are like, But, and then we also, we got lucky enough that, so we were in a tour group of 6 people, and actually the other 2 people had gotten in maybe half an hour before us, and we got to get to know them a little better. Another couple that was also on their honeymoon, so that was kind of nice.
And we were
And
close to
around
our
our
age.
age,
Yes.
so I think that helped. I know a lot of people, like, when they go on a honeymoon, they're like, oh, I just want to spend time with my significant other, whatever. But it is fun. I mean, at least I thought it was fun to have, like, we did have our alone time, but it wasn't like we spent all our time alone. We had people to, like, share experiences with. and
Right.
It wasn't like you were, I think if we would have been just the two of us at dinners and
It would
things
have
like that.
got old, especially because a lot of places we were at where there was no internet,
Yeah.
and it would have just gotten old. Not old, but it would have been a different experience.
Yeah, it would have been hard to
There's
talk
nothing
about
new.
things.
We would just be talking about the events of the day, and it would just be like a normal time at home. But being able to kind of talk about like, oh, what's going on in our lives, what's our story, talk to another couple, and it just made things a little more personal. And it's nice to share it with someone else, especially someone with a similar life experience as you.
Exactly. So yeah, so really the first night we got there around like 6 o'clock, and Andrew and I, in our minds, we were like, oh, good, we're gonna like, and at least for me, I thought that okay, we were gonna go, like we had dinner on the flight, so I was like, all right, well, I guess we're gonna go there, be able to check in our room, shower, and then just go to bed, because that's kind of how I was feeling.
Right.
But then that's not what happened. They're like, oh yeah, you can have dinner at the resort, which is called Seasons, and they have like a in resort restaurant. Tanglewood, yes.
And they were serving food till like 9, I think.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh no, because I could smell myself, and I felt I was offending myself. I was like, oh my gosh, this couple who just met us are gonna like smell us.
I mean, I'm sure they don't smell any better, but
stinky and gross.
But I know I just wanted to, because I didn't sleep on the flight. I'd been up like a day and a half. I tried to like not sleep the night before we left, just so I would sleep on the plane, and that didn't work out. So I was exhausted. We were sweaty. It was just like, let's go eat. And they're like, oh great. So then we had to like, it was a fine meal. It was good. I think we had burgers, and we tried some of their beer. Because the nice thing about the trip was that we didn't have to pay for food. Well, no, we had to pay for food that time.
Yeah, because we had gotten there early.
Right.
We had to pay. That was probably one of the only meals that we had to pay for, which even still
in Johannesburg,
it was the only one in Johannesburg we had to pay for, and honestly, it wasn't even that expensive because the dollar is very strong in Africa.
It's equivalent of like I think it's 13 to. It varies between like 13.5 to 14 rand to $1, and then the food you're getting is like, oh well, your burger's like 65 rand, which is like, oh, it's like $5 for a decent burger with fries and whatever,
and
or
then
chips.
And then you have your beer, which is 25 to 30 rand, which is like not
couple
even.
bucks.
It's like $2.
And for a decent beer, it's not like you're getting like crap beer, like college beer. It's like good quality. Even their domestic was fine. But we still didn't quite understand like tipping, so we ended up really over tipping the lady the first night.
Yeah, so they told us that it was a 10% tip. So I think what happened to us, we kind of got frazzled. I think we were just a little tired, and we so at first it was like we like rounded up to like the next like dollar or something, and we all gave that, and then the lady came back and was like, actually this isn't right. We're like, that was kind of ballsy of her to do.
Right, because you could be like, oh no, it's right, but cause I feel like if you went to like a normal restaurant here, and like the waitress came back and said your tip wasn't right, oh, that would not go over well at all.
So then I think we overcompensated. Like we did the 10%, but then we didn't divide it. We
each of us did 10% and of the total, not the half, and we ended up like rounding it up. We ended up giving her the equivalent of like a 30 to 50% tip.
Yeah, it was, but we were tired, so
and we essentially tipped her like $5, the equivalent of $5, which isn't that bad.
Yeah. So then we got to our room, which was super nice. The Seasons Resort was definitely a place that the style of how they do their rooms is like something I've never been involved with before. It's almost like a hostel / hotel room, because you have like the traditional, it's very
C-shaped.
You're in like a pod of like, there's a 4-person, it's almost like a 4-person suite. So every room you have a bed and then you have a bathroom. But
And then a closet desk area.
right, and then if you want to, there's an optional like communal area where there's like a kitchen and a
full
dining
kitchen.
room and like a living room with a TV, and then there's like an outdoor area with a grill and
It's essentially a house.
yeah,
It's a house with
like
4
a-
suites.
pretty much, yeah. And so that was really nice and different.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were supposed to get up for breakfast the next day at like what it was supposed. They're like, yeah, get to breakfast around 8:00. Ha ha ha. Andrew and Liz set an alarm for 7, and Liz turned off the alarm because she thought that I was ready to get up, and we weren't, and we ended up sleeping until 10 o'clock.
Right, because I could not. Even though I was exhausted, I was still up, just awake. I think I dozed off for like a half hour, then I was just up until like 4. I was up, I was reading, I ended up like organizing all the apps on my phone, sorting pictures. I was killing time because I couldn't have the TV on because Liz was asleep, and I was just wide awake, and I couldn't shake it because my body was still thinking like, oh, it's morning back home, you should be awake now.
Not even really.
Or it was late. I don't remember. I was too exhausted to sleep is kind of how I was. I was in this weird like second wind state.
Mm-hmm.
So then I finally slept. I just slept like a rock.
Mm-hmm.
But thankfully, we did wake up at 10.
They still honored our breakfast
until 11. We got like the tail end. They still got the.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that's interesting about their breakfast is that at least at Seasons, well, I think even at Humala, but we'll get to that. Seasons, you do a cold and a hot breakfast together. So you give like
they'll essentially have like a little like continental breakfast first. So
fruits, yogurt, like oats or granola,
toast,
and then you finish that, and they bring you a plate of eggs, bacon or sausage, and a grilled tomato.
The grilled tomato was good. I would have never thought to do that because they'd slice it and then they'd put it on the grill, I think, with the bacon.
For just like a second. Just
Mm-hmm.
enough to make it hot and soft, and it's always good.
It was very good.
But
then after a while, we got sick of
eggs
because it was the same breakfast at Seasons every day.
Except for the sausage. The sausage was new.
They did maybe a hash brown one day too, but it was
you wanted
the
that.
same.
You wanted that hash brown all the time. That was a good hash brown. Yeah, so the food was good. It got old. That and the fact that
because the breakfast they only did one type of thing the whole day. At least for the people like the Go Touchdown people, I saw that they had other stuff as well. But I think if you went outside of that, then you had to pay extra.
Right. And the interesting thing about also about like Seasons and really in Africa in general is that it's a big Coke product area. Like it's Coke, Coke Light, Coke Zero, Sprite, and then a bunch of Fanta.
And then that's it.
You
didn't see any other Pepsi products or any other...
No, I never saw a Pepsi. I didn't see a Mountain Dew. I didn't see
Dr. Pepper, like nothing.
I didn't even see Pib. And Pib's a Coke product.
Right. Exactly.
I would have gladly had a Pib if I saw it, but no place had it. It was Coke Light, which is Diet Coke, but I just like Coke Light.
Mm-hmm.
Liz got really good at saying that.
Coke Light.
Coke Light. But so that was it. So I would definitely stick a Coke. So having the Cheerwine now.
Mm-hmm. So then, luckily, the first day we were there, like the full day, we kind of had to ourselves because then the following day we would be going on our first safari. So that was the day.
What did we do the first day? I know we kind of wandered, but did we have an activity the first day?
No.
That was just like our free day.
Yeah, so like some people, because they call it like a free pre-night. So Sunday was our like included pre-night. And so the next day, a lot of people will do is like an excursion.
Was that our shops day?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And so like some people, like the couple we were with, they went to, they did like an elephant excursion where they did like an interaction with the elephants. And they had a couple others, but it's just at the time, and they were kind of expensive. We just kind of decided we just wanted to be able to do things on our own.
Right.
And so
James.
What?
So James.
No, well I'm getting at that.
Oh.
So we kind of like first kind of explored Seasons because technically it's kind of like a big golf course resort and like spa and everything, and we ended up walking around, and what was weird was that like there was just like animals just everywhere. Like lots of different kinds of birds and the vervet monkey, which was kind of interesting.
Right, and ginormous rabbits.
Mm-hmm.
And then the occasional, was it springbok? What were the ones that were hanging out? Or they just they were just
they were like
antelopes.
bisbuck, or I don't know. They've got a bunch
They're all
of different-
antelopes.
Yeah, they've got a bunch of. I didn't know that antelope was a
Classic.
whole group. I thought it was just like there was one type of deer-like animal called the antelope, but it's not. It's a big group that includes like impalas and elands and all these other different groups of animals.
Impala is an antelope, and antelopes is like, it's like saying this is a group of antelopes. Is like saying these are birds.
Mm-hmm.
They fall into like a genus of. I probably shouldn't talk laying down. I'm just. It's still been hard getting back to work after we've been all the time off. But so yeah, we got to explore. I remember we went to a bird hide.
That was cool because you could see all the different birds and you could watch the animals and
The
just
ducks and-
kind of figure out what was going on. And we passed a couple of interesting signs. They had giant signs that said "Beware of snakes," and then there was one that was "Beware of spiders," but we saw zero. I was
wasn't the spider
happy.
like they had was the black mamba one of them?
No, that's the snake.
Oh, that was one of the snakes though, right? That was the
Mm-hmm.
and like the black widow was a spider, like, but it's the winter there, so the snakes are kind of hibernating and the spiders aren't doing things. So I think the biggest spider we saw was a little speck of a spider,
which was nice because that was one of the things I was really concerned about going there was like
check under the bed.
I was worried, especially with when we were going on safari and staying overnight. I was worried that like we were gonna find like spiders in our bed or a snake in the shower or something like that.
Shake out the
We
shoes and all that.
Never had a problem with that.
No.
So then later in the day, our tour guide James was picking up the last of our group at the airport, and then he asked if we wanted to do some shopping or something, so just kind of kill time while the other couple was going to be at this elephant excursion. So we're like, yeah, sure, why not? So we drop him off at the elephant place, and then he drops us off at this like basically like a flea market, and it was huge, but we only made it through 2 stores
because it's the shops. It's kind of like if you've ever really gone to like a touristy area or something where like not locals don't go there to shop. It's just a specific clientele goes there.
Yeah, it's a tourist trap.
Right. So it's a bunch of shops that's all like stuff that like a lot of homemade looking items and like art and figurines and knick-knacky things that all don't have prices because they want you to kind of guess what the price is so they're not going to tell you, oh, this is only this much because then you'll pay that. But they're like, oh, well, pick out what you like. I'll say I'll do this much. Then you're supposed to kind of not barter, but you're supposed to kind of haggle them down to a price that you think is
like reasonable.
Right.
But we were kind of bad at that.
No, yeah. We are we're very nice and we don't want to offend and we get guilty easily. So we were the perfect suckers for them. So and the fact that they also lied very openly to us about saying that they made the stuff themselves. There was a lot of like wood, like hand carved things or stuff that looked hand carved, and they had us convinced because this was our first official day there.
That's my art. I did this, blah blah blah, and we fell for it.
Right. Well, and they get you because they ask you questions. They give you a gift. Like, this is my gift to you, just so you feel obligated to get at least something. Mm-hmm. And we don't know if this is a good or bad price because, like, all that our tour guide told us when he dropped us off there was like, they don't tell you the price. Get it down to a price that you're comfortable paying, but we don't know because what we're comfortable paying and what it's actually worth are 2 different things.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've been negotiating him down. Like we got it down. He had a certain price. We got him down like under a quarter of what he originally asked for. And we thought, oh, we're doing great. But he just really put he put like a sky high value, knowing that like even if they come down 90%, I'm still looking good.
Yeah. And what was funny that So we were negotiating with one guy, and we ended up paying him, and then we went into the next store, and then our tour guide showed up, and I was actually negotiating with this guy, and he's trying to, because I kind of like after that point, I was like, all right, this is ridiculous. Like, they're trying to get me. Like, is
Right.
this
Well, they
not
split
really,
us up too.
Yeah, is this going to really be that expensive? And so I was like negotiating with this guy. And
Harder.
He's trying to get me to get this necklace for like 1,000 rand, which was not worth 1,000
No,
rand.
that's like $80.
ever. Yeah, I was like, no, I'm not buying that for 80 rand or 80 or whatever.
1,000 rand.
1,000 rand. I'm like, the best I can do is 200, and he kept saying, no, I can't, blah, blah, blah. But then once the tour guide came in, he said, okay, I'll give you 2 for 200. I'm like, yes, you will.
Well, they know that he would say something or intervene. At least I hope he would. If
He would. He was a nice tour
he'd be
guide.
like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
What are you doing, man?
Yeah, he
He
was looking out for us. He didn't want us to spend all our money in one place.
And I really wish he would have spent with us the whole time.
Yeah.
Or at least been outside, like, James, does this seem fair? But I think they have to let us figure it out on our own. And we never made that mistake again.
Right, exactly.
We were definitely like, okay, now we know this is...
And it was hard because we weren't really used to figuring out things in rand and in dollars.
Right.
So that was kind of like the big, like, oh, we just spent kind of a lot of money, so we're going to have to be more conscious about what we're doing kind of thing.
Right. So we decided, all right, we're getting gifts for these people. We know we have to give this tip money to our guides at the end. So we had we budge all of our stuff, set money aside.
Which was super helpful, I will say. That was
Right.
very helpful to do that, because then we kind of had a set limit of this is how much we can spend on either food, alcohol, and gifts, and
Right.
if you go over, then you've got to deal with the, you have to deal with the those service charges
From
because of
foreign fees.
right. So
Which, even though you're buying stuff in rand, it's still, why pay a fee just when you brought the cash to begin with to convert?
So, yeah, but that wasn't, that kind of I really felt stupid after that, but then it got better once we got back, and
Right.
we were,
We had a little bit of,
we had more food and drinks, kind of,
let's
but
go.
we did go to the liquor store. They
and
made
buy-
us go to the liquor store.
Yeah, we got beer and wine, a 6-pack of beer and a bottle of wine for $10.
Yeah, which
That
was
was-
super nice.
For good, and it was good quality. It was a nice bottle of wine. It was delicious. That was not we just need to need to drink our feelings right now.
Yeah,
Be a little bit of just a little traumatic experience with that.
yeah, and so, yep, we got back to the place. We got to meet the other it was a mother-daughter that came with, and they were from Indonesia, so we got to meet them and had dinner, and
Right. Very quiet.
yeah,
But her mother didn't speak English, but Sasha, who was the girl we were with, did speak English for the most part. She was bilingual or multilingual, and yeah, it was very nice. They were both they're both doctors. She just became one, so that was a nice thing. But she was also right around my age.
yeah, she was
Probably
fresh out of medical school,
so probably 30 maybe.
maybe I don't
She
know.
was close. She was still in the same age group that we had similar interests.
Yeah,
And that's right. That's only our first a full day there.
yeah, and then afterwards we drank with our new friends.
Yeah, we chilled in the
Frank and Melissa, and just kind of continued to get to know each other and things like that. And
used the
then
jacuzzi.
we did use the jacuzzi. And then the next day we had to get up bright and early because we were going to our first official safari,
Yes.
going to Hubal. So it's the Songwe Velo Game Reserve was where we were, and the only lodge, because they call it Game Lodge in that area, is called Humala River Lodge, and that was gorgeous.
Yeah, it was surprisingly only 4 years old. The lodge, the lodge in that area was all, so it was all very new, but it looked like it had been there the whole time. And the fact that it's so off the grid, they did all that construction by hand.
They have they have off-road Jeeps, and we were like, so how'd you get all the stuff here?
This.
Literally, they took the off-road Jeep to put stuff in it and take it. And it was like from the gate to where the lodge is was 45 minutes away. I was just
Right.
like, that's intense.
And plus, there's no not a lot of civilization around there. There's a lot of there were some shops and there were some cities there, but still, like, you're bringing that stuff at least like an hour to the front gate and then another 45 minutes to get back there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it looks beautiful. It's very self-sustained. The people who work there live on the grounds in this giant game reserve, and it's just so relaxing and so beautiful. And I took like 1,000 pictures of all the sights and sounds. And
Well, and then too, even before we got there, it was about a 3-hour ride from 3 to 4 hour ride from Seasons to Humala, and our tour guide actually surprised us with this rest stop, and we were like, okay, this is like a big rest stop. He's like, no, you've got to go into it.
It was
and
like a truck stop.
Yeah.
It looked like a truck stop from the outside.
And we're like, we have to go into it. What did he mean? And then so he leads us out to this open area where there's basically farmland, and there's all these different kinds of animals. They're like rhino and a herd of Cape buffalo,
wildebeest, zebra.
No, not the zebra.
Ostriches.
There was ostriches, like all these different things, and we were like, what? And so apparently this place, I think it was called Appaloosa, and it's this guy, a privately owned company, and like he owns all this land
plus the
animals on it, and he just lets them. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He basically these animals have like a fenced in area that they're able to live in, and then it's massive. And then what they do during meal times, like people will stop for lunch or whatever, they actually they'll feed the animals are kind of on a human feeding schedule. So we were there around lunchtime, and so the people were feeding lunch to the animals, and all of them came really close to the edge, so we could get some really nice pictures of those animals, which is really cool.
Right. It was.
And that was he's like, our tour guide was like, "Yep, this is your first taste of animals," and I was like, "Gosh, I hope." I didn't know what to expect when we were gonna go on our game run, because I was like, I didn't want to get too excited, oh, we're gonna see a ton of animals and then not see any. So I kind of had no expectations.
Right.
And I was thinking, oh, we're just gonna go through game drive, see maybe one or two things, and then then it's oh, maybe next time. Because we did a total of what? 4. So we did.
We did driving and driving out, and then 3 once while we were there.
Yes.
So 5 in total, but 2 were just driving. We weren't slowly going about.
Yeah. But we saw a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wouldn't go by Humala day by day, even though we were there 2 days, but it was just the amount of animals we saw and how close we saw some of those animals was just amazing.
Within our first 20 minutes into getting there, saw a mother-daughter giraffes.
Mm-hmm.
We saw a lot of springbuck and other antelopes, impalas, wildebeest, and that's all just our general driving up as it was the sun was going down.
Yeah,
no, it was still mid-afternoon.
And then they're like, okay, you can put your stuff in your room.
We didn't even put our stuff in our room.
No, we didn't. They actually did that for us.
Mm-hmm.
They had 2 separate cars. It was either there was the passenger Jeep, which we were in, and then they had another car that took was a pickup, and that's what took our luggage to where we were staying, which was amazing. Whenever I think of when people say glamping, I'm like, this is my standard now, so anything else that's lower than this is not glamping.
Oh my gosh.
At all.
I really want to get Liz in a tent, but I don't think that'll ever happen.
It's just the place we stayed, there's a structure. It's almost like a skeleton of a hut, almost. A small...
It was it's essentially...
It's like a house on stilts.
It has a patio, a double door in the front, glass on one wall, and then the sides are have banisters and a railing, and then they're not tarped, they're tented. So there's zip out windows you see at any regular tent, and then in the summer they actually can roll those up so you get the cross breeze of nature. Mm-hmm. And in the middle of the room there was a bed and dressers. The bed was heated because it's winter, so it gets super cold at night, and then there was a shower
outdoor shower.
An outdoor shower, and then the bathroom and stuff is all behind the bed area.
But it's inside.
And actually, like, we didn't really talk about the weather that we're there. When it's summer here, it's winter there. So the temperature in Johannesburg was in the high 60s, low 70s.
Yeah, I'd say
during the day, and then down into the 50s and cooler at night.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you're in, it's just
there's not
a lot of open space. There's no windbreaks.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of, like, here we've got a lot of, like, soil. The soil's really rich, so here it's easier for the ground to hold the heat, whereas where we were in Humala, it's
Dry.
not like, it's very dry, so it doesn't hold heat. So literally once the sun goes down, all that heat that you had during the day is gone.
When we were on some of those game reserves, as soon as the sun went behind the mountains, you just felt it drop like 10 degrees in like a second.
Yeah.
Because like all the dirt is like tan and like red, so it's not holding any heat in it. It's just out.
Right. And so, yeah, I mean, we were there 2 days, so we did 2 sunset safaris and then 1 sunrise safari. So, I don't know, what did you like better? Did you like the sunrise or sunset better?
I feel like we saw different animals at each point.
Mm-hmm.
I think I liked the sunset one though, because at least we had the sundowner, which was nice.
Yeah.
A sundowner, which is that, like, we drove to like a high point, and then we could have drinks and like watch and just like kind of get out of the safari. We're like in like a relative area, because at Humala and that whole what's the word again? The S word.
Sogmavelo.
Yeah, that whole place. There's no major predators there. There's no lions. There's no.
And then we found this out too. So if they the reason, like, a lot of times when you think of safari, you think of those caged vehicles. Well, here we didn't have to do that because there were no predators. There were no lions, because a lot of times when you're in an area that has lions or cheetahs, they like to, if you're stopped, they will sometimes go on top of your car. Well, since we didn't have any of those, it was open deck, because the only like big cat that was a predator that's there is a leopard, and leopards are very elusive. So you're not going to see a leopard come out and attack a human because they're way too scared to do that.
Right. If we were walking around by ourselves, going into like trees and bushes, then potentially.
Right.
But they're more likely to go after a gazelle or an antelope than go after us.
Right. Exactly. So that was nice, because we kind of got to do a bit of both. We did few, like, later in our trip, we did especially like Lions Safari Park and Pilanesberg National Park. Those were where we had more of like the enclosed jeeps, because there were lions, and especially in Pilanesberg, you didn't really know when you were gonna come upon an animal, especially an animal like a cheetah or a lion. So it was nice to have that.
Right. They did make it safer because it would be a major liability in that area, because they're all wild. They're not used to people. Well, they're kind of used to people, but they're not.
They're not nice.
They're not nice.
They're not hand-raised, so they're not used to humans in the capacity of like a hand-raised lion or tiger or whatever.
Right. So I think we got to see a lot of animals up close when we were at Humala. We had to try a lot of. We started to try some authentic African fare. We saw tribal dancers that came during our last night.
That was really cool. Mm-hmm. The tribal dance, and learning about the culture too, about how, I mean, like, so the dancers, when we saw them in Johannesburg, they were from Swaziland. So there's actually, we didn't know this either, 2 countries that are within South Africa. So one is Swaziland and one is Lesotho.
Yeah.
Anyway, so those 2, the reason why that's like that is because they didn't want to give up their king. So these countries of Lesotho and Swaziland, they're run by a monarchy, and both countries are very poor, because obviously the wealthy monarchs are not sharing.
Right. And we got to learn something when we were talking about that, about there was still a dowry system in place. You still, when a man wanted to marry in the culture, it was 11 cows the male had to give to the wife's family.
Mm-hmm.
And for the king, who has many wives because they have polygamous marriages out there.
In Swaziland, like the more rural areas. Like when we were in Johannesburg, I don't think that there were any in Johannesburg. It's mostly like those very small, like more tribal communities.
Right.
And we didn't really see a ton of that. We saw a lot of like the tin shacks and things that people would think of when they think of like an urban city.
Right.
Then, but like when you actually get to a major city in Africa, it is completely different from what you think, which we'll talk about when we talk about Cape Town.
Keep from cooking.
Yeah, lots of KFCs, which is surprising.
Right. We'll talk about that more. Except it's still really surprising because even like on our drive-in, you'd see like a town that was essentially like a lot of tin shacks, a lot of people who had like cattle and stuff, and then like you go to like an area where there's like street vendors, and there's just like a KFC that looks like immaculate. It looks like one you'd see like on the corner anywhere in America. Something like nicer than the ones you see around here. Mm-hmm. And yeah, and it was very well done. Like they really liked their chicken there, so, which was it was just very surprising to see. Mm-hmm. But let's getting a little off topic, but we'll have to talk about that more when we get to Cape Town with the amount of like American restaurants that we saw while we were there.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think. So I mean, being at Humala and learning all this rich culture, because technically, from what we were talking to our guide, because we were wondering like why Swazi, why are the Swazi dancers here? And he said that we were literally like a stone's throw away from Swaziland's border. I was like, that makes sense.
Right.
But it was very interesting to learn about them, and it was just kind of like an eye-opening experience, because these dancers, like they weren't like adults. These were like kids that should be in school, but they're, doing this dance.
And I think they're still in school.
Right. But they do this because their families don't have money, and so they do this dance crew.
And they've been doing it since like some of them were like 4. They've been like training and stuff, and they do this because this keeps the kids away from doing drugs, teenage pregnancy, a lot of the common like urban issues that come up a lot,
right?
Especially in low income areas.
Exactly. It definitely was a reminder of like those inner city kids, and like just any of the issues you see in America with teenagers. I mean,
right? That is an international problem.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I learned a lot, at least from being here, is that there are problems that exist that don't have borders. They're everywhere around the world has these same issues in these areas, and it's things that we need to work on as a planet.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so Humala was amazing. It's beautiful.
Yes.
Untouched by anything. And then we went back to Seasons, because we were doing more touristy things around that area. So one of the first places we went was Haversport. It's a cable car thing, and you went up the mountain, so that was pretty cool.
Right.
But it was kind of short. And then we went to this place, which I think it was one of my favorite things, was we went to Lions Park and Safari.
Yes.
And so it was basically this smaller, like, safari. I'm guessing it's like a reserve or sanctuary or whatnot.
It was more zoo-like.
Yeah, but you're going into their territory. It's not like these. There are fenced-in areas.
They weren't in cages. They were in they were in little fenced-in, and you were the one in a cage.
Yeah. But that was kind of fun, because we actually, like, before we even got into the areas where the lions and the cheetahs and wild dogs were, we actually stopped, because in the way there was a giraffe that kind of just stopped. And the lady just stops the Jeep and opens the door, and the giraffe sticks his head in.
Right. Which
was kind of funny. So she like handed feed to everybody, so we fed the giraffe and pet it and everything.
We know this isn't this is a thing that the giraffe knows that, when this pulls up, I just got to go over and I get free food. Mm-hmm. Because this place they are very used to people just driving around, and they know there are no threats.
There's a lot of the animals there are hand raised. They said there are very few that were actually like born in the wild and like brought here. A lot of them were
Born and raised here.
Born and raised at that specific safari park.
And to create their own hierarchy on their own, like the lions did what lions do in the wild, and
So that was really neat. But then, so we went through. They had a couple different areas with different prides, and there was a cheetah side and a
what was
wild dog side.
Do you remember what the group of male lions was called that formed its own like kind of pride?
I don't know.
It was like not a conviction. It was like a C word. It was almost like a.
I don't remember.
I can't remember. It's kind of one of those things like, oh yeah, that's what that's called, and then it just slipped my mind. But it's basically like, because there's only can only be like, in the pride there's the one in charge who has the largest, bushiest mane. Then there's the subdominant males that still mate with the females because for the best chance for the cubs to survive, the female knows if she mates with all the male lions in the pride that no one male lion will try and kill the others for his own offspring to survive. So they just assume that all of them are each other's and they'll all raise them as their own. We also learned that a lion female will only raise like the first 3 that are born. The other ones she'll let fend for themselves.
Oh, they're called coalition.
Coalition, yes. But so at this place, they would take the ones that would probably die or get picked off by other predators, and then gives them hand raises them and gives them a life. They use them for like education,
interactions, and
then
entertainment. Yeah.
Not like carnivals and zoos. They use them in movies and TV shows and stuff. Gives them what you see like domestic animals being used for. They're very well treated. They're very well respected, but they give them an experience of a life that they wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, because what did they say? The female usually has anywhere from 5 to 8 cubs, and the first 4 are automatically the ones that are supposed to survive.
They're the strongest, and that's how whoever's the first ones out are the ones these are the strongest. That's where they're out first.
And then the other ones, they just leave. They just don't even take care of. It's not they don't even consider them anything. They just kind of leave them because they don't see them as dominant. So right. I'm glad that they help out and they keep it going, because when we were done with our lovely safari, we got to go and play with those cubs.
They were 6 months old? 3 months old?
3 or 6 months old, I don't know.
I can't remember. They were the size of a good sized dog. But they were still very, you could see their paws, and you know how big a lion is, and you could tell those paws, I picked up one paw, and it was literally almost the size of my hand. And I got pretty big hands, so it was, and they got their claws and they got their teeth. If they wanted to, they're getting to the age where they're almost probably too big for interacting with people.
Because then they start getting more, their teeth are a little too sharp, and they're having, they might have issues.
They like to play fight. And
yeah.
Any cat, when a cat's playing with you, if it wants to give you the nips or scratch you, cat, it's it stings, but you're fine. If a lion cub does it, you're going to lose a finger or have a nice sized gash in your arm.
Yeah, so luckily, we got tons of pictures of it. They were really cute.
And the amount of not albino, but very pale lions that we saw there.
Well, they're called the white lions. So there's white lions, there's the normal common lion, and then there's a mix of the two.
It's a blood. It's a light.
It's kind
of a light tan.
Mm-hmm. So that was cool to kind of see all of them, because you really don't think that there's more than one color of lion or lion species.
You think of the one where it's they're kind of gold fur, they have the big brown mane, but yeah, there's definitely saw a lot of white ones with the tan mane, and it was very, very interesting. But it was also, since it was a relatively hot day when we were there, a lot of the lions were just chilled, and we got to see lion cubs nursing off the mother and learn a gross fact about lion mothers and their cubs.
Yeah, that was disgusting. You want to tell them, or should we keep it a secret?
No, we can tell them.
Okay.
So apparently, which I didn't know and didn't need to know, and was glad I had lunch before that, because in the wild, lion cubs are not strong enough to defend themselves. Other predators, if they find out there's lion cubs there, will try and hunt and kill them because they're easy targets. Because it's like babies and small animals. It's just so what the mother does is she'll stimulate the cubs to poop, and then will eat the poop so that they leave no trace that there's cubs around. Because then by the time it passes through the mother, it's big cat poop and no one cares.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very gross, and I was just like, oh, it's like, oh, it's doing it right now. And I'm like, that is a mother's love right there, because that just sounds awful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was kind of gross, but they were cute and they were fun to play with.
And there's like this interesting to see like,
and I know like I know there's a lot of people that really don't like the interaction type thing, but it like when we actually did it, like it was so much fun, and I really do care about animals, but I felt that they had so many different. The way that they structured it was really nice because there were multiple like stalls of or like multiple play areas of lion cubs,
right?
And they just switched them out, so it's not like one like the three cubs that are there working all day. It's like okay from
they have dozens, not dozens, but they have quite a large amount.
I would say they probably have a dozen, and they just switch.
And they have like 4 out at a time or something.
Yeah, 3 or 4 out at a time.
And you're only with them for a couple minutes. It's not like you're there with them for like a half hour and then they're doing it all day. It was, and we know that these are very well cared for. They're very much about the safety. It's not like you're going to a zoo and it's like, oh, you have interaction. Like these are the same ones you're going to see all day, and they were captured and brought here. These are the ones that they were raised here. They've been taken care of. They're not being exploited.
Mm-hmm.
It was all about interactions and education, which I think was the important thing.
Yeah. But that was probably one of my favorite things, was just I love animals. So whenever I get a chance to like feeding the giraffes was really awesome, and like, doing this cub interaction was very like something
their fur is so unique.
Yeah, it's very dense.
It's thick and it's dense. I know it's probably just to keep them warm in the it keeps them cool enough in the summer months, but also it's thick enough to keep them cool when the sun goes down and it gets massively cold out there.
It kind of reminded me of like the old timey teddy bear fur.
Yeah, it's like it was thick and it was curly and it was almost like you feel like it's like almost like Velcro. Like you could probably like stick stuff to it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it softens as they get older. But I don't know because always see the lines look like long, like almost like Afghan like fur. But
yeah, I don't know. But it was really fun. And then the last day that we were in the Johannesburg area, we were at Pilanesberg National Park, which was really cool because you can actually drive your car through the national park. It's not like you have to pay this amount of money and you have to be at this place at this time so that a jeep full of 50 gazillion people can go off and do whatever.
Right,
it was really nice.
There's gates and checkpoints, and once you're in there, you're in there.
Yeah. Which was really nice because the other 4 people in our group decided to upgrade and do the Jeep tour. But Andrew and I were like, I'd rather spend that money on something different because it was going to be it was like $60 per person to go on this Jeep tour.
And it was like basically like you're in like a big school bus with like metal windows. Mm-hmm. And I think we had a better experience because we were by ourselves with our guide who knew the area really well. We had we weren't in a group of people being all noisy. We were able to go to different sides of the vehicle. I much preferred that.
And we kind of dictated where we wanted to go, and he asked us where, what kind of animals are you interested in seeing, and from how he knew the park, he was able to find like some of those animals so we could get those pictures.
Right, because he's this guide. He does it week in, week out. So he knows, like, oh, last week there were animals here, and I know that this group of lions always hangs out in this spot, and these animals hang out over here. So we got to, like, oh, okay, cool. So he was able to drive us around. Like, right away when we got in, we saw
a giant elephant.
Just at the water's edge, just getting its drink and doing its thing, and we got pretty close to him, and then
we saw our first leopard.
We did see our first leopard, a leopard cub.
Mm-hmm. So, and it was just kind of by chance because we were just driving away from the elephant, and you always know that there's something around when you have like maybe more than one car waiting and looking at something.
Right.
So we have to stop, and it was awesome because a lot of people, so we saw 3 different leopards, and we were very lucky because we had found out from our guide, he's like, normally, like, when people go on safari, they maybe see 1, sometimes none. And so that was really cool that not only did we get to see one leopard, but we saw a leopard baby and 2 adult leopards. Like, that was really a unique experience. And even for our guide, too, because he's never seen that many leopards,
Right.
In one single run. So that was really cool. Especially since we saw 2 with a kill. Because one of them had a kill. Like, we saw him go in the trees.
With its...
At the bottom of the tree with his kill, and you could hear all the crunching of the bones and the muscles, which some people would probably get really grossed out about, but I thought that was very cool.
It was a reptile that it caught.
Well, one of them, the first one that we saw that had a kill was an impala, and the second one was a monitor lizard.
And we saw it just after it caught the monitor lizard, but the guys who were on the bus got to see it actually catch it, or so it was very cool to kind of get to see that experience. We saw, did we all see like warthogs? We saw some rhinos that saw out their horns because at Humala they grind the horn down just for their own safety and so that poachers don't try and steal them because it's a large swath of land at Humala. So they just want to make sure that all the animals are safe.
Yeah, and they only keep the horns, the tips on the horns, when they're lions so that the rhinos are able to defend themselves. So we actually got to see the rhinos with their horns, which was really cool.
It was very sharp looking.
Oh, yeah. Agreed. And then, yeah, we just saw a lot of things up close, especially elephants.
Right.
We have some really great pictures of, like, that we didn't even need to, like, zoom in at all.
Zoom
because
out,
it was,
actually.
Yeah, we had to zoom out our cameras because we were too close.
Like, Liz could have almost, like, reached out the window and touched the one that was just eating very contently. We got to witness a dominant fight between 2 male elephants.
Yeah, that was cool. And then we followed the loser, which probably, in hindsight, if we were by ourselves, it wouldn't have been a good idea. But since our guide was with us, he kind of knew. He was very knowledgeable in knowing, like, okay, this animal is okay with having people here take its picture.
He was able to know body language and knew the signs.
Which was good because we could get close to the animal without getting hurt.
The lion that, or not the lion, I keep on saying lion, the elephant that had lost, I think was the most, I had the most anxiety during that interaction because it looked like it was going to charge us and take us down because it was not in the mood. It turned, like we drove up slowly and it turned on us and did like a
huff at us. And
yeah,
it was a little scary.
and then it walked a little faster and then we're like, okay, time to go. James like, it's my friend, it's fine. I was like, no,
yeah.
I'm done. We can keep going.
Yeah, and that was kind of like our last day there, and then the next day we left to go to Cape Town. But I think what really made the trip more memorable was that we had a really great guide take us around. Like, James had all this knowledge, and, there was never really an I don't know to a question.
Right.
I mean, he knew his stuff. And
he had the personal experience. He's done all this before, so it was never like, oh, let me look this up. It was like he had it all on the back of his hand, and he had books available for us to read up on other things if we were curious about certain animals that we wanted to know more about what it was. Like, oh, I have books back here. You can look at this and that while we were driving. And
also not even just that, just like getting to know him and his culture, because there are different tribes within South Africa that are still kind of functioning. And if we had questions about the culture, he was more than willing to tell us about certain things. And it was just really nice to, like, we could just kind of be open and not be so guarded with questions.
Right.
Like, we could ask him literally anything, and it was super nice.
His big thing was that we are family.
Yeah.
We are family. You are now of Africa.
He said, we've been waiting for you. That's what it said.
And it seemed like, and both guides we had were very different, so we know it's not like, this is how you're supposed to act. That was just how he was, and he found his calling doing this, and he had his family and stuff, and he went above and beyond. We haven't even talked about what he did for us for our honeymoon.
Yeah, I guess that could be a good way to close it off.
Yes, because so on our last day back, because he said something, he told me something like the day before, he's like, don't tell your wife, but I have a surprise for you, and I was like, okay, that's random, and I didn't know if it was something to do with when we were at the game park, or if it was something to do with like a drink or something. I had no idea what to expect. And then he was being really weird when we got back to our rooms at the...
No, it was on the way back from the park. He kept, like, stopping and going on his cell phone. We were like, what the hell? Like,
and I thought it was, like, an issue with our rooms because we kind of checked... No, that was not at that point. It was, we just weren't sure if it was something to do with, like, our flight or our dinner or whatever. It was very confusing.
Mm-hmm.
But he got like, I'll be right back. So like, he looked like we were like stopped like the side of the road, and he like walked out and then came back in and kept going. And then when we got back to our place, he was being kind of weird, and I was like, does he see something? And the room is like, because then he had like Frank and Melissa, who was the other couple, like follow us back. And I was like, this is odd. And like he said to us just to follow you back and keep an eye on him. Like, is there an animal or an insect we should be watching out for? Like, what is going on? Mm-hmm. So we unlocked the door to go into our room. And there were candles and rose petals strewn across the room. There was rose petals on our bed. There was champagne and a bouquet of flowers on our bed. And it was just very romantic, very sweet. He had coordinated this for us for our honeymoon because we had told him, or it was in our paperwork, and he decided to arrange all this. And we got to see like their like country flower, which was the protea.
Mm-hmm. It was just really sweet. And, like, it just made it feel more like it kind of reminded us that, oh, we're not just on our vacation. This is our honeymoon. This is very, like, a special occasion.
This is for us. And
it was really sweet of him.
Right. And, yeah, it blew me away. Like, that's something above and beyond. Like, we had a great enough experience that was not necessary, but it was a very nice surprise.
Yeah. But I guess to end it, this is just like all in all, even just in Johannesburg, like I know a lot of people have worries about money and things like that, but literally just being in Johannesburg, like that was worth the amount of money we spent, and we were only in one place. And to add Cape Town to it as well, I was like, shoot, we had gotten like a great deal.
Right. Like I think 2 hours into Mala, I was like, this is worth the price of admission. Like I was happy, I was relaxed. I got to hear African versions of like popular 80s music, which was interesting. But we're not even like the amount we've talked a lot. This is like one of our longer episodes. And we've barely scratched the surface of the amount of stuff we did at just Johannesburg. And we have our next episode will be all about Cape Town and anything we missed. And if we have to type of loose ends, we might do a third about it. But it was just a phenomenal experience, and I honestly think we'll have to go back in like 10 years, 5 years. It definitely, I think I'd love to see it in like a different season. Because actually we were there in winter, and like it was the perfect temperature for me, because if we were there in the summer, it would have been brutal. But it'd be nice to be there like just if they're rainy season when there's babies and everything's kind of flourishing and all that. But I had no complaints. Beyond the getting there and getting back, I had no complaints while we were there.
Yeah. It was just, I don't know. It's like once you get to Africa, it's like you're itching to get back. Like, it was kind of funny because I think it was like 2 days after we got back, I had gotten an email from this website that I subscribed to called Scotch Cheap Flights. And they already had a deal on Johannesburg flights. I'm like, ooh, is this a sign? Should we
go back? Winter.
Should we already start planning our next trip?
Like Christmas break, back to like no, that's definitely too soon. But I'm definitely for like not being like this was Liz's like vacation. This is what she's had her heart set on for her whole life.
Mm-hmm. And it was never my dream vacation.
Right. It was never like going on safari was never like something that I dreamed about doing, but being there and stuff just blew my mind, and I loved every second of it.
Mm-hmm. It was like normally for me there's like, and I know that sounds really lame, but like Andrew knows this too, like I have like a bad day on like certain things. It's just like there's a bug up my butt, and like I get so cranky and like worked up about something that may be like insignificant, or like just something bugs me and I just get in a really crappy mood. But like the whole time that we were in Africa, like none. Would you agree?
I agree. Like you were I was the one who had the most problem, and I wasn't even bad. Like I've had beyond like the airport stuff, I was pretty good the whole time we were there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's just you can't be stressed out there.
Yeah, it's
like I think maybe if we were on our own, like driving on our own, doing stuff like watch out for those abnormal loads. I think we would have just been a little stressed out because everything is backwards there because they do follow the British way, which is driving on the left side of the road, and it was just very hard to readjust to with the steering wheel on the right. So being like in the front, what we call it the driver's seat, which is the front left of the vehicle, but not being the one driving is bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
And like turning left off a highway and taking the left, it's weird, but it was amazing, and I can't recommend it highly enough to anyone who wants a non-traditional vacation.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it has elements of both a non-traditional and traditional if you do it the way that we did.
Right. Like Cape Town is a very
traditional type
vacation. And this Johannesburg is not. But we never really saw Johannesburg as a city. Like the city itself could have been just like any other big city.
But we weren't there. We were always on the outskirts.
Right. We went to the airport and then went straight to the resort.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just interesting. And I know people go there on like hunting trips, and Liz and I aren't really, that's not our life. So, but it was definitely an amazing experience. And I don't think anything else I can add.
No.
Just, we'll maybe throw a couple pictures up on our page to show some of the Johannesburg stuff. But yeah, that'll do it for Adulting Easy for this week.
I'm Liz.
And I'm Andrew. Have a great week.